In September 1900, a city on the Texas coast was warned a hurricane was coming. The chief meteorologist told his superiors it wasn't a serious threat. 3 days later, that city was gone. This is the Galveston Hurricane, still the deadliest natural disaster in American history, and the disaster that happened partly because one man refused to believe the storm could be as bad as it was. Galveston, Texas, in 1900, was one of the wealthiest and most important cities in the country. It was a booming port city, sometimes called the Wall Street of the Southwest, with a population of about 38,000 people, and it sat almost entirely at sea level on a narrow barrier island, with no seawall, and the highest point in the entire city standing less than 9 feet above sea level. The U.S. Weather Bureau had a local office in Galveston, run by a meteorologist named Cline. Cline was well respected, and just a year earlier, he had published an article arguing that a major hurricane could never seriously damage Galveston, reasoning that the shallow waters offshore would break up any storm before it hit the coast directly. It was a professional, published opinion. It was also completely wrong. In the days before the storm, Cuban meteorologists had already tracked the hurricane crossing over Cuba and warned it was heading toward Texas with dangerous intensity. But the U.S. Weather Bureau at the time had a strict policy. Cuban forecasts were not to be publicly relayed or trusted, largely due to professional rivalry and a belief that American forecasting methods were superior. That warning never meaningfully reached the American public. On the 8th of September, 1900, the storm made landfall directly at Galveston. Modern analysis estimates it as a Category 4 hurricane, with sustained winds over 135 miles per hour and a storm surge that ultimately submerged the entire island under more than 15 feet of water, nearly twice the height of the highest point in the city. There was no seawall to stop it, no significant evacuation, and by the time residents understood the true scale of what was coming, the bridges connecting Galveston to the mainland had already been washed away. There was nowhere left to run. The destruction was almost total. An estimated 3,600 buildings were completely destroyed. Survivors described entire neighborhoods reduced to piles of splintered debris, with the wreckage of collapsed homes crashing into each other and forming massive walls of rubble that crushed anyone caught in front of them as the surge pushed forward through the city. The death toll remains one of the most staggering in American history. Estimates range from 6,000 to as many as 12,000 people killed out of a city of only 38,000, meaning somewhere between roughly 1 in 6 and nearly 1 in 3 residents of Galveston died in a single night. To this day, it remains the deadliest natural disaster the United States has ever experienced, more deaths than any hurricane, earthquake, or wildfire in the nation's recorded history. In the storm's aftermath, the scale of death created a public health crisis nearly as dangerous as the storm itself. Bodies were too numerous to bury individually. Officials initially tried weighting corpses and burying them at sea, but many washed back on shore within days. Eventually, the city resorted to mass cremation, burning bodies in the streets on massive pyres, simply to prevent the spread of disease across what remained of the city. Cline survived the storm. His pregnant wife did not. In the years that followed, Cline's public account of the disaster shifted considerably, and he began describing himself as someone who had personally warned residents door to door, a version of events historians have since found little evidence to support in contemporary records. What came out of Galveston's destruction was a genuine engineering achievement. The city built a massive concrete seawall, over 3 miles long and 17 feet high, and undertook an extraordinary project to physically raise the elevation of the entire city, pumping in sand beneath existing buildings to lift Galveston's ground level by several feet in some areas. That seawall still stands today, and it's credited with saving the city from catastrophic destruction during multiple major hurricanes since. Galveston learned, permanently and at enormous cost, what happens when a warning gets dismissed instead of believed.